Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Malie, and today it's time for an urban food forest tour. Now, I live in Utah, Zone 6/7. I live on a residential property. It's a very urban area with a lot of neighbors, and it's about 1/4 of an acre. And I have had a goal and have succeeded in my goal of growing most of what I eat when it comes to fruits and vegetables. Now, I'd say I grow about 95 to 98% of what I eat when it comes to fruits and vegetables, and I eat a lot of them. Now, I'll link a video up above that showed my last video, which was a garden tour, showed you my garden beds and what's going on in my vegetable gardens. And now I'm going to show you all the fruits and nuts that I'm growing. So let's start on the south side of my property and see what's growing up in my front yard. Now, before we go any further, if you want to know what flowers are growing and what plants are growing in the front yard, I will link my What's Blooming in My Water Efficient Landscape up above so you can kind of see what is blooming and what some of these plants are. So I'm sorry about the sound from my neighbor's air conditioning. That can't be helped. Like I said, we're in an urban area. But I wanted to show you some of the edibles that I have here. This is a laced up elderberry, and I think by next year we should be able to start seeing some fruit production. Sambucus nigra, which laced up elderberry is a Sambucus nigra, require a pollinator. Now, I do have a pollinator in my backyard. It's just not old enough to flower yet. So once that starts flowering, maybe we'll actually get some fruit production. But they stay very, very narrow. We get about 3 feet wide and 10 feet tall. This right here is a one-of-a-kind, well, not one-of-a-kind. There's very few of them out there that I know of here in the state of Utah, but this is a hardy pistachio. It's really getting close to the age where we should be able to tell if it's a male or a female. And then maybe I'll hit up some of the other people in this area to see if I can graft whatever we don't have so that we can have fruit production on this pistachio. I have another one in my backyard that I will show you in a minute, but it's not as big and as well developed as this one. This one is right next to my neighbor's lawn, and it's getting the neighbor's lawn water. So I think they really actually like water a lot more than I thought they would. So this is a non-fruiting pistachio at this point, but we should get fruit once we figure out if it's a male or female and it gets old enough to produce. Down here, we have some volunteer ground cherries. They produce down here every single year. They like the water from my neighbors. And here, and I'll link some videos up above on my figs. Now, we did a fig pinching experiment, which means we go through and pinch off the growth tips early in the spring to see if we can get some good fig production, to switch it over from growth mode to producing mode early so that we can get figs, and it looks like it's really, really worked. We've got a ton of figs coming up on here, and any fig that happens to start growing before the end of July here in Utah will have a chance to ripen. In my area, at least, if they grow after the end of July, they will not have time to ripen. So this is a Chicago Hardy. I do cover my figs the entire winter into late May just to make sure we don't get any frost damage on them so that I can get production. Here in Utah, they will freeze to the ground if you don't cover them. They will grow back from the roots, but whether or not you actually get fruit production at that point that has time to ripen is a question. Some people do, some people don't. This down here is not producing like I was hoping it would. This is a black mission fig. It's a gift from a friend in Southern California. I did pinch all of these. They are producing side shoots. I'm not seeing... I did see 1 or 2 areas where it looked like we might get fig production, but I'm not seeing them now. So I'm hoping this develops some figs that will ripen. They did produce 1 fig last year, and it was absolutely delicious. It was one of my favorite flavors. But maybe this guy down here might be the beginning of a fig. I don't know. So we're just hoping for production on this plant. This is its 2nd year, and I'm finding that my figs, starting the 3rd year is when they really jump into production. And this fig was also protected all winter. Now here in the front, we've got some more edibles, and down here, we have got a little pawpaw covered. Now, Utah is not an area where you would think you would find too many pawpaws. They are a little difficult to get started. They're an understory tree that likes a lot of water, understory riparian areas, which is not what we are here in Utah. We get very little rain in the summer, and it's very hot, and it's high elevation, so we have to cover them the first 2 years. So this is a 1-year-old seedling from my 15-year-old fruiting pawpaw. Now, this is where I'm learning how much water pawpaws actually need. This whole area used to be lawn 4 years ago. When I cut off the water for the lawn, I forgot to add extra water to my pawpaw. The top died out. It's only half the size that it used to be. It does not like our hot, dry winds, so the side where the winds hit the most is drying out, and we're losing leaves on it. But even though I don't have a pollinator for it, we do get a few fruit every year. We went from 20 fruit at the beginning of the year, then had a giant windstorm. You can see the damage on that one from rubbing against the other pawpaw during the windstorm. We went from about 20 to 25 pawpaws down to, I think I counted about 10 left. So this was planted in 2008 and has been fruiting for the last 8 years without a pollinator. Now this is a 4-year-old sunflower pawpaw. So this one's a Davis right here. The one under cover is a seedling from this Davis that I grew. And this is a sunflower pawpaw, which may be a mistake. I may need to graft something onto this because from what I've heard from others growing pawpaws here in Utah, the sunflower ripens too late. It just doesn't have time enough to ripen. But it did flower for the first time this year. It didn't get any fruit. You can see some of the sun damage on it because this is a 4-year-old tree. It's still quite young and still prone to the sun damage. But it's a gorgeous tree, and I'm excited to see if we can actually get fruit off of it. This big staked tree in the center is also a rare fruit. This is a medlar tree, one of the few growing in the state of Utah that's fruiting. There are a few, but not very many. During our huge windstorm, it became a windsail and ended up almost on the ground. So we have that staked up. It's not wilting, so I think we saved it. I'm really excited about that. I was really afraid to lose this tree. It's a beautiful tree, produces a ton of fruit on it. I'll show you what it looks like with the flowers on it. This right here is a 3-year-old Bounty almond. Now, to grow almonds in Utah, you have to be very careful in your choices. You have to choose a late flowering, early ripening variety to be able to get fruit here. They're grafted on peach stock, so they are also susceptible to borers, and we get peach tree borer here really badly. But if you're careful, you can get fruiting almonds. Now this, like I said, is a 3-year-old tree, and let me see if I can find him. We have 3 fruits. I'm only seeing 2 right now. So here's the 2 that we have, or nuts, and I had one more. Hopefully it didn't fall off. I'm not seeing it, so it may have fallen off. Which is kind of, oh, no, it's right here. So we have 3 nuts on my almond tree. I'm really excited to try those. So this is a Bounty. This pollinator is a 1-year-old tree. But look at this. Right here on this 1-year-old tree, this is a Nikita's Pride almond. Early ripening, late flowering, soft-shelled almond. And we've got 1 nut on it already. So it's just a little baby tree. Hopefully it'll catch up with that other one here shortly. Another thing that I like to do is to grow strawberries in my landscape. They are gorgeous ground covers. They feed the neighborhood children. They feed me. We have 3 gallon-sized bags of crushed strawberries in my freezer. The neighborhood kids have had all that they wanted. Now these are June bearing, so I'm not seeing any new flowers on these getting ready to harvest, but getting ready for their next fruiting episode. But we have others on the property that are ever bearing, so they're gearing up. Now these also have an excellent fall color. So I do use strawberries in my landscape quite a bit. Now these do need to be hand watered because the rest of my landscape is low water. So I hand water these 3 times a week. Another fruiting plant that I have on my property are my pomegranates. Now, I'm not seeing very many female flowers. There's a couple that are a possibility of being female flowers. This one down here, if you look at it, the base is swollen more than the one above it. Can you see the comparison there? This may possibly be a female. It's held on the tree quite a while. And this is probably a male, and it'll fall to the ground. But this is a hardy Slovatsky pomegranate. It's a Russian pomegranate. We only covered it with burlap last winter, and it did quite well, and it got down in the single digits. This one's a 4-year-old tree, and I've heard that once they hit that age, you really don't need to cover them unless we get the coldest of cold winters. They're very ornamental, and I've heard the pomegranates are tasty. Now we have another fig here. This is my most prolific fig. This was a gift from a friend whose grandparents grew it on their property in Salt Lake for decades, never covered it. They said it died to the ground every year, but it came back and fruited beautifully. So I think I might start a cutting off of this tree and then leave it uncovered and see what happens. See if we get this much fruit. I mean, look at this. Can you see all the fruit on here? It's a very delicious fig. I'm assuming that it's a brown turkey because any figs that are of this age here in Utah are usually brown turkey. But it's a really delicious fig, very prolific, and a really good grower. This down here is another learning experience in my water efficient landscape growing, when I'm trying to grow an urban food forest also. This little dead one down in the center here is a dying seedling of a yellowhorn. Now, I was really sad because I didn't have any more yellowhorn seeds to start. They're easy to start by seed. And I thought, maybe I should just try something else in this spot. But then I found in a pot that I was growing something else in, another little yellowhorn seedling. They must have somehow dropped a yellowhorn seedling in there. So that is growing here. And I think to get these established, they need a lot more water than I was giving it. So we're going to try to continue watering these and see if we can get a yellowhorn tree. Now, yellowhorn is a nut that's a lot like macadamia nut. They're from China. And from what I've heard, if you get them to maturity, they are a very drought tolerant, easy to grow, gorgeous, usable tree here in this area. Then we've got some more ground cherries down here. And this right here is another type of ground cherry. This is called the Peruvian ground cherry or goldenberry. And we've got some flowers starting on it. These ripen late. You have to start them really early here in Utah to get a crop. They need a lot of heat and they need a lot of water and they do need a lot of time to ripen. But if you can do that, they are so delicious. It's kind of a cross between a mango and a papaya. Their fruit is larger than regular ground cherries and doesn't fall to the ground when they're ripe like the other ground cherries do. The papery husks that they develop just turn golden and then they're ripe. So we've got another green stalk here. It got hit by the windstorm, but we're growing strawberries in here. We've got ever-bearing varieties that really didn't like that windstorm and they've struggled a bit. So I need to figure out what to do to make these do better here. This right here is a Carmine Jewel bush cherry. It has not had time to fruit. It's had a hard life. We had some utility workers come, dig it up its first year, and then buried it 2 feet down deep in the ground. I made them replace it. So we got a Juliet bush cherry, which is right over there. And when I went to plant that one, I dug way down to loosen up the soil and found this little guy. And dug him up. This was the next spring, so it stayed underground all winter. It had little growth points on it. So I dug it up and planted it. And I planted it actually over there, decided that was the wrong spot, transplanted it the next year, and it's still growing. And hasn't borne fruit yet or flowered, but I'm assuming next year it will. Now we did get a little bit of fruit on my Borealis and my Aurora honeyberries this year. We didn't get a ton. I think the birds found most of it. I got to eat 1 or 2 of the fruit and they were really good. But they've only been in the ground here a couple of years. So I'm assuming they will put on a lot of growth next year and we should get more berries. but the ones that I did get off them were really delicious. We've got 2 more golden berries here. And let's see if we have any more ripe Juliet cherries. Aha, look down here. This is the last of my harvest of the Juliet bush cherries. They're kind of tart. They're pretty good. They're not the best for fresh eating, but let me show you what the jam looks like. Let me show you what the jelly looks like. I juiced these, added a tiny bit of pectin, equal amounts of sugar as juice, and created the most delicious jelly. So I think that's what's going to be done with these every single year, is we're going to be making bush cherry jelly. The other nut trees that I have are my hazelnuts. So this is a Lincoln hazelnut. Now let me see if I'm telling you wrong. Let me see if I can find the tag on this. Nope, sorry. It's a President. It's a Jefferson. This is a Jefferson hazelnut. Hazelnuts grow really, really well here in Utah. This one is, I think, 2 years old. Let me show you the Doris hazelnut over here. This is also 2 years old. It seems to be growing a little bit better. So this is the pollinator for the Jefferson. So I'm hoping in the next couple of years I will get my first hazelnut harvest. Now this is my backyard food forest. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. Tons of fruiting trees and shrubs, and I try to do a mix of what you would normally find in Utah with a lot of things that are rare and unusual. Now I started a Facebook group for Utah or Intermountain West, actually, growers of rare fruits. Because, I'm sorry to exclude the people from Florida and Hawaii and Southern California and stuff like that, but I wanted fruits that can grow in colder climates that are not normally grown. And I wanted to show you some of the things that I have. We have, like I said, it's a mixture of normal fruits that you normally find and some rare and unusual ones. This food forest was put in about 5 years ago. I think this is the 4th or 5th year. It might be its 5th year. And so things are coming into their own and starting to produce. So over here is my north side. This is shade, and this poor little plant, this is its last year alive on my property. I'm going to offer it for free to whoever lives in this area. We're going to dig it out and we're going to put a Crandall clove currant in its place. This is a golden currant, and this golden currant just has a lot of problems with flopping everywhere. I cut it back many, many times so it's not in my path. And it just is not what I was looking for this spot. Let me show you the fruit on it. Okay, now we did have a decent harvest, not a ton, not enough to really process anything with it, except for I will show you what I did do with it. But these are the fully ripe golden currants. They are actually golden. I've heard some of the varieties of golden currant have blackberries, but this one is golden. So if you live in this area and you want actually golden currants, look for my posts in Utah Rare Fruit Growers where I will offer this for free if you come dig it up. And let's pick it and show you what they look like. Once they are fully ripe, when they're this dark color, they're actually pretty good. And I mixed these with my champagne currant, my pink champagne currant, which I will show you in a minute, and we made some jelly that was absolutely outstanding. Yeah, those are pretty good. Now we also have our very, very first few berries. This is a Josta berry. And what I am learning in my fruit growing experiment, here 30 years on it, is that you need to really be patient and wait until things are ripe, especially when it's something new. Now this is a Josta berry. I had my first Josta berry a few days ago, and then I had my first Josta berry a week ago, and I hated it. It was nasty. It was astringent. It was horrible. But then they started to get darker and get riper. These are not ripe here, but this one is ripe. I don't know if you could see that it's a little bit darker color. These are astringent and not very good. That one has a very complex flavor. It's tart, but it's really, really good. I really love the flavor on that. So you need to wait until things are ripe before you make a judgment call. Same thing happened with my champagne currant. So I have a pink champagne currant here. This is a Primus White. The Primus White are not ready yet. They're getting really close, but they're still not very good tasting. So I know they're not ripe. Down here, I harvested most of my pink champagne currants. But you can look and see the color differences. The darker colors, the ones at the top, are the ones that are actually ripe. The lighter ones down in the bottom don't taste as good. So let's pull a couple off and show you the difference. So here we have a ripe pink champagne currant and an unripe pink champagne currant. So if you were to eat this one, you would decide that pink champagne currants are not very good. But if you eat this one, they have another unique flavor. It's actually pretty sweet, still a little tart, but pretty sweet, and it's really good. So I'm excited to wait, because this is going to be the first year that we have enough to harvest these when they're actually ripe, to see if I like the Primus White currant. So now we're over here on the south side of my property, and in my last video I talked about why I'm shading my tomatoes, and you'll see that video. I'll link it up at the top. But this right here, we have a couple of edible plants here. We have a maypop. They don't make their appearance out of the ground. You think they're completely dead and gone. They don't pop up until the end of June. So it's only been about 2 weeks that I've even seen any growth on these, and this is how tall they've gotten. What they will do is they will hit the top of the roof, they'll get too heavy, and then they'll fall over on top of my serviceberry and just lay on top of my serviceberry for the rest of the year. So this has been a perfect place to grow them. They don't seem to take a lot of water. They don't start forming flowers until, let's see, I think they start forming flowers near September, or maybe it's August. Yeah, it's probably August, and then they don't ripen their fruit until late in the year. Now, these are not the same when they're ripe as the regular passion fruit. In Southern California, I grew Passiflora edulis, the Frederick variety, absolutely delicious. It was purple and juicy with the yellow seeds inside, or the yellow, membrane around the seeds that was juicy. Very, very delicious. These have the same type of flavor, but the inside is much drier. You don't have the juicy membrane around the seeds. Instead, it looks white and dry, but that white, dry membrane has the same flavor, well, not as good, but almost the same flavor as the regular passion fruit. So last year, I had assumed that they had not ripened because it wasn't what I was expecting when I opened up the fruit. But I decided to plant the seeds anyway because the seeds looked like they were mature. And every single seed sprouted. I have given away all of those starts. And so this year I'm hoping for another good harvest, and I will give away more seeds and more plants. Now actually, these happen to grow up inside my tomato raised bed. You can see a couple of little guys right here. And what I've been doing, that one didn't come up, is reach way down, pull them up, and then these are really easy to root. So I have rooted a ton of these, and I'm going to be offering these, my rooted ones at the end of the year. So maypops are easy to root and easy to start by seed. And these get watered about once a week. I hand water them because I don't have irrigation to this spot, but they're a great plant for here. Now this is the end stages of my serviceberries. Now I have to tell you, I have 2 full gallon bags of serviceberries, and I've had 4 or 5 people come and harvest. And it doesn't look like we've even touched this shrub. I mean, they're just still everywhere. This stage, they don't have great flavor. They're starting to dry out. This one right here is fully ripe and delicious. When you get them at that flavor, at that stage, they're not mealy, they are not dry, they're just really good, sweet flavor. This stage, they're not tasty at all, they're mealy and dry. This is another good one, I think. No, it's a little, let me try it. That was another good one. But when they get to this stage where they're starting to dry out a little bit, they really have no flavor at all. Service berries are excellent to grow in Utah. They're actually native to the state of Utah. Excellent fall color, easy to grow. These are growing on my east side in part shade. They do get lawn water, but they're also extremely drought tolerant. So mine are right next to the lawn. Mine do get lawn water, but I've heard that they're extremely drought tolerant. This variety that I have is Regent Serviceberry, which is only supposed to get 6 feet tall. You can see how close it is to the roof. I think it's about 10, 11 feet tall, and they're supposed to get 4 feet wide, and I think this is about 8 feet wide. So when they're happy, they can grow bigger than what the tag says. This over here is another one. I think it's about 15 feet tall. This is also a Regent Serviceberry, and they're just amazing plants. This right here is my fully matured jujube. Isn't that a glorious tree? Absolutely gorgeous. It's another one that leaves out extremely late. It leaves out at the beginning of June, so it misses all the late fall freezes. And let me show you the flowers. Let me see if we have flowers on this still. We do. These are the flowers. The fruit's starting to form right here. And they smell like honey, especially in the evening. This tree, even though these flowers are tiny, it will scent up this entire area of my backyard. Now it fruits prolifically. I mean, almost every single one of these flowers. You can see here, it doesn't drop very much of its baby fruit. So I get bags and bags, enough of this to share and enough to make candied jujube and dehydrated jujubes for me to last for a full year. Easy, easy to grow plant. We've got some gooseberries down here. This was supposed to be an enormous gooseberry, or an Invicta. I think it's actually Invicta gooseberry. But it turns pink. You know, I'm not seeing any ripe ones yet. You can see how many gooseberries we have down there. But when they're ripe, they turn pink. And you know they're ripe when they're soft. Don't harvest them when they're hard, because then they don't taste good. But this one is a pink one. Don't know the variety. It's quite sweet and pretty good. As you can see back here, this is how far your maypops will spread. This is a maypop that is growing underground from over there, and I just pull them out just to keep them under control a little bit. This is a 2-year-old Invicta gooseberry, the replacement for the one that was the wrong variety, because Invicta is very, very good. This right here is a poor, crowded out pluot. When I planted this 6 years ago, these trees were about 10 feet apart. These are my blue spruce, and they decided that they were going to grow exceptionally fast. They were 8-foot tall trees when I bought this house in 2007, and they stayed pretty small until about 5 years ago, and then they started to take off. So this guy's getting crowded out, but this is a pluot, and I just really have had a hard time getting it to fruit. I usually get about 3 fruit a year on it. This is a dapple dandy. So I think what I'm going to do is I am going to graft it on my other pluots. Let's go show you where my other pluots are. These are 2 pluots. I have a Flavor Supreme and a Flavor King pluot planted in the Dave Wilson Nursery backyard orcharding method, where you plant more than one tree in a hole. And then using the Grow a Little Fruit Tree, which is also adapted from the Dave Wilson backyard orcharding method. So I'm keeping them short. I just did the June pruning, summer pruning, just sheared off the growth on the top to keep them about this height. So in August, I'll hit them again. Next spring, I will do the shaping. That's what this is. This is pulling a branch down so I can shape it. And then we just do summer pruning to keep them short. Now, they are going to get fruit for the first time this year. These are 4-year-old trees. So we're going to have a few fruit of each variety. And I think I'm going to graft the dapple dandy onto one of these, just so that I can have some dapple dandy, because the dapple dandy pluot is really, really good. And I don't think that one over there between the blue spruce is going to do much better than that. I think it's going to continue to decline because of the spruce trees. Now, I have practiced the Dave Wilson orcharding backyard method. I'm getting tongue-tied there, but I'll put it on the screen. For about 30 years. I learned in the early 1990s from Ed Levio on one of the campuses in Ojai. I went through one of their test orchards and learned how to prune trees from him then, and how to grow trees in this method. And so right here, we have a 15-year-old clump of trees. This is 2 apples and a pear. This is a Bartlett pear. This one doesn't look like it has fruit on the front, but when you go to the back, there's a ton of fruit. But this is an early Fuji. And then over here, maybe you can see the fruit over here, we have a Jonah Gold apple. My apples here are very alternate bearing, so this is their fruit bearing year. Last year we hardly got any fruit. But if you look under here, maybe we can see it. But if you go under here, you can see how close together they're planted. They're planted in the same hole and then pruned as a single tree. And then if you look through here, you can see all of the apples on my September Wonder Fuji. They're just all concentrated in the back for some reason. Now these look like they're really tall, but they're on an extremely steep slope. So I think at most they're about 10 feet tall, and they're on standard rootstock. So they should by all means be 30 to 40 feet tall. But I no longer summer prune these because they get about this height, and that's it. We'll prune them down in height in the spring. Maybe next year I'll do some summer pruning. I thought about doing some summer pruning this year to kind of stunt them a little more, but I just don't have the energy to do it. So anyway, Dave Wilson Orcharding Backyard Method, excellent way to go. And I'll link some more videos. I have a playlist on pruning that shows how I prune these trees, and then we'll link the book, Grow a Little Fruit Tree, and the website down in the description, so you can learn more about that. This is another experiment, another Dave Wilson Orcharding Backyard Orcharding Method. These are columnar apples. We have the North Pole on this side that's growing a lot of apples. We have the Scarlet Sentinel on this side that didn't produce as many this year as it did last year. And we've got 2 apples down here, I think, maybe one or 2 apples down there. These trees are about 4 years old, so it's the first year I'm letting more than 1 apple grow on each one. And when you have young fruit trees, the flavor isn't always as good as it could be. So we'll see how well they turn out. Now this is another pomegranate. This is a Kazake hardy pomegranate. And this is for sure a female fruit. And then I had another one. Let's see if I can find it. And then there's another one down there. I thought I saw more, but maybe I was wrong. But anyway, it looks like we're going to get our first pomegranates this year, and it makes me really excited. This right here is also making me excited. This is the first year that we're going to get fruit off this tree. This one right here is a Black Mission VS fig. It's a cutting I started last year. We've got our very first fruit on it. Didn't get any fruit last year because it was too young. And then we've got a few more starting down below. So we're actually going to get fruit on this guy. I may need to move this yarrow. I'll link a video that I made about yarrow up above, but this yarrow is a little aggressive. It will get cut back as soon as it's done flowering, and this Black Mission VS fig will get bigger, so maybe it will outcompete the yarrow. We'll see what happens. In the front here, we have another fig. This one is a 3-year-old fig. This is a Negrone. It fruited last year. It was really delicious, a very dark fig. We've got some Breba crop on it. The Breba crop is the early crop that forms on the old wood. We're going to see if this actually ripens. It's looking promising. I've never had a Breba crop ripen here in Utah. It's looking promising, but we do have some new figs coming on here. Let's see if I can find them. See down here? New figs forming before, they're very tiny, but they're forming before the end of July, so they will have time to ripen. There's some more of the Brava crop down in there. Another fig that's brand new, this is its second year, that's forming brand new little figlets, is the honey, the Italian honey fig. So we've got some new little figs down there. And then this one forms some really nice looking Brava crop that I know that one will ripen. So we're going to get to taste our Italian honey fig for the first time this year. Another one that's making me happy. This is one that I really wanted to try. This is an Olympian fig, and we've got a ton of little figs on it. So this one is its first year also too. So it's a 2-year-old fig, first year fruiting. And this one is, I'm wondering if I have a mislabeled fig. This one is a 4-year-old fig, so by all means it should be producing like crazy. We are getting figs on it, but that's the biggest that they are right now. And this is supposed to be a Ronde Bordeaux. It's supposed to be one of the earliest ripening figs there is, and it just doesn't ripen early at all. It always is the last one to ripen, and it usually has a ton of unripe figs on it by the end of the year. We will get some to ripen, but as you can see, there's just not, the branches are, you can see the figs thinking about it. But if they form before the end of July, after the end of July, we're just not going to get ripe figs again this year. So this may be something else. The shape of the fruit and the color says Ronde Bordeaux. I just don't know if it just acts differently in Utah. Now, I can't remember if I said the name of this last one. It's a Negron fig, possibly Violette de Bordeaux. Dark fig. Now, these are other fun ones. This is a Cassandra persimmon. It's a hybrid between the Asian persimmons and the American persimmons. It's a new graft from last year. We're getting new growth on it. No fruit because it's really young, but it's looking really healthy. In contrast to my Giro early persimmon. So Ichikekai is the name. This is the name right here. Ichikike Giro persimmon. This one, besides the stupid grasshopper, is just struggling. It needs to be watered 3 or 4 times a week, or the leaves fold up like that, which to me says there are root issues. I had a Nikita's Gift last year that I did the exact same thing, and when I dug it up, it had a ton of circling roots. So I'm thinking that's what's happening to this one. So I'm going to work my hardest to keep this one alive until late fall, and then I'm going to dig it up and see if we can save it, because I don't want to start over again. But if we have to start over, we'll try it again. This is another pomegranate. It's a little less hardy than the other ones. This is also younger. This is a Parfianca pomegranate. Supposedly one of the better flavored of the hardy pomegranates. It's too young to actually fruit, but we did get its first flower. So it's an absolutely gorgeous little pomegranate. I'm excited to taste it and see what it tastes like. It's supposed to be a soft-seeded pomegranate. This right here is a gummy berry. This is the red gem gummy berry. Or maybe it's a sweet scarlet. Let's see. Yes, this is the sweet scarlet gummy berry. It's got a ton of growth on it, had a ton of flowers, but it needs a pollinator to form fruit. Let me show you the pollinator. This is the pollinator. It's a red gem, and it was planted at the same time, and it's just struggled. I may need to move it out away from this glow blue spruce, because the roots are probably sucking all the water from it, and I need to cut the sage away from it and see if we can get some growth on it. Because if it would flower, then we would start getting fruit. This right here is my Shinseki Asian pear. It's a 5-year-old tree, first year producing fruit, and it's going gangbusters. I pruned off 3/4 of the fruit off this tree. So we're going to have an excellent, excellent Asian pear harvest. And I've heard that this variety is delicious. My stepmother has an Asian pear in her yard that I have gotten fruit off every year from her, and I absolutely love it. I love to dehydrate them and make a pear sauce with them, so they're really, really good. They're a crunchy pear rather than a soft pear. My blackberries are amazing. This is a thornless blackberry. This is a triple crown. Dan Owen, who's an arborist, came and pruned them for me. And you have to prune them more than once. So I just did the first pruning. This is the new cane for fruit for next year. I pruned probably about 3 or 4 feet off of the top of them just yesterday. And what they do is they form these side shoots. And then this fall or early next spring, I'm going to take these side shoots and prune them back. And that's where the fruit clusters form. So if you do that, you get twice as much fruit. And it looks like we have probably another 3 or 4 weeks and we're going to have blackberries. Now these are delicious. They did produce a few last year, but not near this amount. We have an ever-bearing raspberry over here that I got a ton of fruit off the beginning of the year. This is ever-bearing. So the lower canes produced in the spring, we've got some more fruit down there. And now the upper canes are starting to bear their fruit. So this will be my fall harvest. And that down there was my early spring harvest. We've got 5 varieties of grapes. This is a Himrod grape. It's setting a ton of fruit. If you look in here, we've got clusters of fruit. I never thin out my fruit on these, and they turn out absolutely gorgeous and delicious every single year. And the thing that I love about my Himrod is it will give me more than one harvest. So I'm not seeing any flower clusters on this one yet, but in another little, short little while here, probably the end of July. Oh, right there, see? Flower cluster. I don't know if let's see if we can get this in focus. Flower cluster for my second crop of fruit. And it will just do, it does plenty of the second flowering. It's not as large as the first harvest, but we're going to get my second harvest of Himrod grapes. We also have the Concord grapes. So the Himrod are the first to ripen. The Concord are the last. We've got a lot of fruit setting on this one too. Second to last are my seeded Swenson Red, and this is my most prolific and vigorous variety. So we get a ton of fruit on this. It's all covered up right now, so you can't see it, but there is a ton of fruit in there. The Swenson Red has the best flavor of all of my grapes, and I use it for juice because of the seeds. Fresh eating it's good for, but it's also excellent for juice. So if you look in here and look up, look at all that fruit. And they are actually really, really late this year. There are years where my Himrod grapes would be ripe already. But we had a very cold spring, and so the fruit is late. This is my Canadas. This is my second ripening. So the Himrod will go first, my Canadas will go second. Absolutely gorgeous. Delicious, delicious fruit. I use my Himrod for raisins and my Canadas for raisins and fresh eating. And then over here, it looks like it's a year where this is going to suffer again with chlorosis. There are years that it suffers with chlorosis and years that it doesn't. It does get a lot more shade because of my nectarines and peaches. But this is a Jupiter grape. This is my second to last ripening. It's got a musky flavor, but if you add it to the Concord and Swenson Red, if you just do a mixed grape juice with it, it's really, really delicious. And it's got a dark color, so it adds a lot of beautiful color to the juice. This is my cherry. We had many, many people come help harvest cherries. Still didn't get them all. This was a banner year for cherries. I have 10 quart bags in my freezer and a ton of dried cherries, dehydrated cherries. Still didn't get them all. So they are falling to the ground, which is kind of sad. This is the back side of my apples. You can see in there how many apples we're going to get this year. So we have the Jonah Gold on that side, and I actually thinned these out quite a bit. And then this is my Fuji down here. I need to thin that branch more, but this is an O. Henry peach. Very late ripening variety. I've got to thin these out too. I thinned these out over and over. But yeah, so O. Henry peach. And then this is an early Alberta. So this is also the Dave Wilson backyard orcharding method. You can see how they're angled out from each other. There's the 3 trunks. And then you prune them as one tree. I let this one get 8 feet tall by the end of summer because I've stopped summer pruning. They get about 10 feet tall. And then I cut them back down to 8 feet tall in the spring. And these are actually on standard rootstock, so they should be a lot taller than this. This is my Santa Rosa plum. I am not sure how many plums we have on here because the storm took out over half of them. You know, we had that big, huge windstorm. But I'm still getting some, and these are the best flavored plums ever. They are so good, especially when ripe. They are extremely juicy. So these will be ripening in about a month. This is my Sambucus nigra. This is a Jonade Serenade elderberry, which is supposed to be the pollinator for my laced up elderberry. And it's back here on this hill. We've lost most of the mulch. I need to get more mulch on it. I did not put the weed mat down. When I purchased the house, you know, we had this massive vegetation and there was a lot of weed mat down. I did not remove it like I should have because this is a really large hill. And I think it helped with erosion. But anyway, we need to get more mulch back down on it. But this is a 2-year-old plant, and it seems like it's doing pretty good. We'll see how it does. Now down here is my excitement and joy. When I first moved in, I thought it would be really fun to have a fig tree because I had figs in California. So I planted this little tiny Chicago hardy fig in 2009. This is 2024. And every year, I've never covered it, never fertilized it, don't pay attention to the water too much. And every single year it dies to the ground, then it grows to about a foot tall and it just stays there, it doesn't fruit, and then it dies back and comes back to a foot tall. I think it was lack of nutrients, lack of water, too cold of winters. But this year, it's actually getting fruit on it. It did not die back for the first time ever. Because our winter, even though we hit single digits, I don't know why it didn't die back, but it didn't die back. And we're getting figs for the first time ever on this little tree, and it just makes me happy. I leave it because it's a testimony to endurance. And then we showed you in front, a long time ago at the beginning of this video, we showed you my pistachio up front. This is seedling from the same plant. These are seedlings that are grown from some plants that are on the campus of Utah State University. And I guess some Iranian students had come, or Turkish students, somebody had come in the 1970s and brought some seedlings with them, planted them on the campus in an unwatered, hilly area, and they survived all these years. And a friend of mine went and harvested some nuts and started those from seeds. So they still produce and are growing now, even though it's been a long time since the 1970s. I'm trying to replicate the conditions that they have on the USU campuses here. It gets very little water. It's on a rocky hillside. It does get full sun, but it's not dead, and it's healthy still, but it's not doing near as well as the plant in the front has. So we're just going to see. Keep it going. It's hiding under the apple tree, but you can kind of see the way the leaves look. They're really pretty. And then here's the end. the last of my strawberries. These are also in ground and they do so much better in ground. Oh, and I almost forgot. We have a Honey Glen honeyberry here. It's too young to produce. We have a Borealis Beast over on this side. We had one berry off it this year. It's a 2-year-old plant. It was delicious. A Borealis Blizzard all the way over there next to the iris. And then we got a really good harvest off this one. This is a blue banana. Absolutely delicious berries. I'm excited for the production for next year. So we're at the end of the tour and I hope I hit everything. I think I hit everything. And hopefully this video has given you a little bit of an idea of the different things that can grow in Utah. Some of them are easy to grow. Some of them take a little bit of extra care, but they're all very, very worth it. And I would love to hear what you're growing in your backyards. So hopefully this video has been helpful to you. If it has been helpful, I hope you like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and go have a wonderful garden adventure.